I've already touched on this to a degree in the recent Broken Silicon, so check that out. There's some stuff in there as well about it. But I want to say that at this point where I am sitting, I really, 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 really think that Valve should consider doing a bare bones edition of the Steam Machine. So here's the current BOM sheet that I put together, like what was it, like a month ago now. And I just think it's worth throwing it out there that if Valve had a bare bones edition of the Steam Machine, which means no RAM, no SSD, and no controller, and I would say no controller because I think most people will just use a PlayStation, Xbox, or some other controller they already have. So I would recommend a bare bones edition with no RAM or SSD or controller. You remove all of those things, they could profit at $400 with this thing. I'm just saying they could do that. And again, I want to be clear. Everyone keeps arguing over subsidization. My entire argument for Steam Machine pricing, based on the analysis that I did, that, by the way, Digital Foundry agrees with, when I say $400 with no RAM, no SSD, no controller, that's with like a 20-30% profit margin. So I think Valve needs to do this. I think it would really behoove them. And my assumption actually is that they have already bought RAM and SSDs for the Steam Machine, but I find it unlikely they bought everything they'll need for the next 5 years to support the console. So if I was Valve, what I would do is I would have like a $400 to $450 bare bones, no controller model, a $450 to $550 16 gigabyte, 512 gigabyte, also no controller. I would do no controller as well with the 512 gigabyte model that comes with RAM. And then I would do like, yeah, $600, $650, 16 gigabyte, 2 terabyte controller model. And what you would do is, I don't know how much RAM they've stockpiled. I don't know. But what I would think the argument would be, let's just make it easy too. Let's just say it's like 650, 550, 450 or something. What they could do is say, here's the bare bones edition for 450. Here's the $550 one, and here's the $650 one. And again, it could be 600, 500, and 400. I don't know. And they would do a launch. You know, the 2 terabyte model that comes with a controller would probably be what most reviewers look at. It would sell out right away. I don't know how many they could make, but let's say they sell 500,000 consoles. You know, they sell like 300,000 half a terabyte, and then 200,000 terabyte ones. And then they just have the bare bones one there. And then that's mostly what you're able to order on the Steam website. But whenever they get a chance to get a good deal on RAM and SSDs, you will see the non-bare bones editions come into stock and you can order them. It's going to be hard to get them. They often won't be in stock. But I'm sorry, I think Valve is going to have to do this to respond to the market, because I do believe there will be RAM shortages at least through the middle of next year and likely till the end of next year, maybe even into the following year. And so we'll see what happens. But I would be very, very surprised if they don't do that. And if they do that, it's a big deal. I want to be clear about this as well. There's a real argument to be made. Like, you could be Valve and you could be like, hey, look, I know you don't probably need our controller, and I know that it sucks you have to supply your own RAM and SSD for the $400 bare bones edition or whatever it costs. But that old HP laptop that you have laying in your closet right now, get out a screwdriver, right? Go get the SSD out of it. We're letting you do that. Like, go, if you have an old mini PC, or again, like an old laptop that might have like an 8 or 16 gigabyte DDR5 stick in it, go get it. I think a lot of people probably do have old laptops lying around right now that could have RAM, and certainly will have an SSD they can pull out. And I think it would really, really, really behoove Valve to offer a bare bones edition so that if they run out of RAM, if they run out of SSD for reasonable prices, they can continue to sell something, but also they can market it. They can say, go dig up your old laptop and contribute less to e-waste. Pull out that RAM, pull out that SSD, you know, go see if you can get on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, see if you can get a hold of a stick to get that thing running early without having to pay extra. I just think it's common sense. And I'm going to be very surprised if there's not a bare bones edition of the Steam Machine at this point. But what do I know? You know, maybe they won't do it. And maybe they have. Maybe they already bought up 20 million RAM sticks that are in a warehouse somewhere so they can manufacture, you know, 2 for each console. Maybe they can already manufacture 10 million consoles and they're just fine with that many total. Possibly. But if I had to guess, they stockpiled, but they only have enough for like the first 6 months of the launch. And they really should offer a bare bones model for those that want to just repurpose old parts from a laptop and don't need a controller. But that's just my 2 cents. I think a lot of people this continues to be a big discussion point. People arguing over what the Steam machine will cost. And it's kind of turned into everyone arguing about RAM prices and what that means for the Steam machine. A way to flip over the chessboard is just to not include RAM in an SSD and have a tutorial on how to put in your own SSD and RAM. And that would solve the problem. Like, you could still have the fluctuating prices and the more expensive model at the top, but you could still have this anchor at the bottom, a $400 device. Yep, you need your own controller, RAM, and SSD, but it would still act as an awesome check on pre-built costs and undercut the Xbox Series S. If you have an old laptop, you can buy this for $400 and get better than Series S performance. So at least I hope they do that. I just wanted to really give my full attention to that idea because I haven't seen enough people talking about that. No News writes in, Valve continues to gain influence in the gaming industry. If the leaked information from Valve and its partners is scant, at least on the hardware side, is Valve really that tight of a ship or just sailing under the radar? So I liked this question. And the question basically is, how do so many Valve leaks not leak sooner, even though they make hardware? Well, first of all, there's a lot of answers to this. Like Steam Deck 2. Why don't we know the specs of Steam Deck 2? I don't think they have them yet. I have access to some pretty extensive, let's say, lists of information at AMD. Nothing's listing a Steam Deck 2. And I have code names for all types of stuff that I haven't leaked yet. I'm telling you, nothing lists Steam Deck 2 yet. So my impression is that the Steam Deck 2 just does not exist. That probably deep inside the vaults of Valve, they have a concept of what they want it to be. They've already talked about this. They have performance metrics they want it to hit. They probably have the overall concept in their heads, and they've got some groundwork for what they want it to do, but they haven't chosen an APU or anything. So that's why that wouldn't have leaked yet. Now, what about the Steam machine? What's to leak? It uses hardware that's been out for over a year. I mean, the graphics card, by the time it comes out, it's going to be like 3 years old. So there's really nothing to leak. You know what when you think about my PS5, my PS6 leaks, like Canis and Orion, yeah, those leaks stick out in AMD documents because there's code names like Orion and Canis and Zen 6C and RDNA 5 and all this special stuff we haven't seen anywhere else. Why would anyone, except for the most razor-eyed people, like, sadly, it's Bradley. Again, check out that podcast he was just on, Broken Silicon. Like, why would anyone pay attention to these little things, that aren't really new hardware? So that's point number 2. Point number 3, Valve is like what? A private company of 400 people? How many does NVIDIA have now? Isn't it like 50, 40,000 people? AMD's over 30,000, I think. Why do you guys think I'm able to leak Intel information often years before it? Around 100,000 people work at Intel, at least recently. Like, the attack surface is huge. So Valve is a much smaller company that does way less things. That's why their stuff doesn't leak as often. And even then, there were Deckard leaks and these leaks from Sadly It's Bradley years ago. So I would actually push back a bit and go to the people that are paying as much attention to Valve, like Sadly It's Bradley, as I pay attention to a company like NVIDIA or AMD. To me, it seems like there are leaks actually pretty early for Valve. It's just they don't do as much and its stuff doesn't stand out as much. So that's my answer to that question. This piece of content is brought to you by CDKeyOffer.com. Believe it or not, what you are looking at is my co-host Dan putting together his current Zen 4 desktop almost exactly a year ago. Of course, that code for Windows 11 came from CDKeyOffer.com. And we've been using CDKeyOffer.com at Moore's Law for a very long time. I use it for my office software on both my desktop and my laptop. And that's because they're reliable. They've always been there for us. And they offer reasonable prices for Microsoft products that are usually set, in my opinion, at monopolistic pricing. And they're actually having a Christmas super sale right now. So if you're looking to get the best pricing on Microsoft software or games or other products on their website as well, please show support for a company that's shown support for the Moore's Law is Dead team and community for years by using offer code brokensilicon to get 25% off all Microsoft software and DieShrink to get 3% off everything else. So support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out CDKeyOffer.com today.